I consider the 2010s to be the great era of anime discovery. This was around the time a lot of us millennial and Gen Z anime fans really started getting into it, thanks to the internet kicking off and becoming a lot more accessible to everyone worldwide. This was the era a lot of classics and influential anime really started making waves. We got Attack on Titan, One Punch Man, Psycho Pass, McGee, Kill la Kill, and even Sword Art Online were all anime that could be considered monumental in shaping the anime space today, for better or worse. This was also the era we got a lot of amazing series that never got continuations. At the top of my head, we had stuff like No Game No Life and Noragami. At least in the case of Noragami, it was able to get a second season, but that has remained locked in the 2010s. It wasn't until the 2020s that a few of these were able to finally make comebacks with new seasons, which were positively received by fans. However, one such anime that wasn't able to stick its landing on its return to its beloved fans would have to be The Devil is a Part-Timer. A new season so rough it killed any momentum the anime had built up, souring the series as a whole. Coming out all the way back in 2013, The Devil is a Part-Timer was a reverse isekai that followed the story of Overlord Satan, the demon king who ruled over all manner of monsters in the land of Ente Isla. He sought to conquer the world to create a utopia for his kin. However, his plan gets thwarted when the hero Emilia, holy sword in hand, led an army up to put a stop to him. With his demon generals taken out and his army near wiped out, he, along with his second-in-command Ashiel, are forced to retreat through a portal that leads them into Japan, our world. With nothing but the clothes on their back, very little magic energy left, and nowhere to return back to their world, they quickly come to learn that if they want to survive in this new world, they need money. So Satan, under the new name of Sadao Mao, takes up a job working part-time at their legally distinct McDonald's, McRonald's, where he juggles trying to be an upstanding employee, saving money, and hiding his identity as the Demon Lord. Though it doesn't take too long before he's found out by the hero Emilia, who followed him through that portal to finish him off, but has found herself roughly in the same spot as him, working a job too just to get by. For the most part, the story was more of a slice of life broken into arcs that had our characters dealing with some kind of problem related to Ente Isla, with the main cast slowly expanding as the story went on. Y'all gotta understand, at the time this anime came out, it was one of the most unique series out there, giving us a premise we hadn't quite seen before. Heck, even today with the overabundance of isekai, with a few reverse isekai here and there, The Devil is a Part-Timer is still able to stand out as one of the better cases of an actually fun and unique story. The first season of the anime was a really good time to run through. It was fun watching the day-to-day struggles of Mao and Ashia as they split hairs about their finances on top of the fish out of water trope they had found themselves in. The first season more than anything was focused on giving you a slice of life story with a few plot-heavy stuff to break up the pace. It was able to strike a good balance between the two, making both sides feel important to the overall vibe of the story. It was cozy and hilarious, and that isn't just the nostalgia talking. The first season was genuinely funny at times, with humor that surprisingly aged pretty well. It didn't rely too much on overreactions and slapstick, but was a lot more grounded in the way it delivered its jokes. And while not every joke was a hit, some of which felt very anime, it didn't bring down the whole experience and only got better as more characters got introduced, which in turn made for a lot of fun character dynamics. Humor aside, there was also some really good character writing to be had too. The journey of Mao discovering this new side to himself he never would have found in Ente Isla gave us the impression that there was a lot more layers to him, as we never get the sense that he was truly a bad dude and only did what he did for the sake of his people. Then there's Emmy, who is forced to come to terms with the fact that the person she hates with all her heart and swore to kill isn't really the same anymore and doesn't really pose a threat as long as he's in the human world. We watch her struggle to accept this new side to him, considering his actions have led to the death of many, like her father. These were some really complex feelings and situations. Unfortunately, the anime treats her like a tsundere, with subtle hints of them being endgame. Let me just say this now, I did not ship them one bit. What this first season does is show us that there is a lot of potential in the story despite the fact that it spends most of its time being a slice of life. It left people with a lot of expectations on how things would play out in the coming season. So fans waited, and waited, and waited, until all hope of the anime ever returning died. That was until 2022, almost a decade after the first season had ended, that it finally came back, and when it did, well, oh boy. Immediately, the first thing anyone with functioning eyes would notice was how vastly different the anime and its characters looked now. Gone were the sharp and angular designs that made the characters look more dynamic and gave them a strong 2010s anime energy, and in its place were characters that looked cutesy and rounded off, losing any flair they had, making the whole thing feel a lot more generic in design. This was done in order to make the characters look closer to their light novel counterparts. If you've been around this channel long enough, you know just how big of a fan I am of these angular and sharp designs. The exact same thing happened with High School DD's 4th season that I still haven't recovered from. And just like High School DD, this was thanks to the anime returning under a different studio. The first season was animated by Studio White Fox, and the second was done by Studio 3 Hertz. So not only does the art take a hit, the animation takes a notable dip in quality too. The first season really helped to sell the characters' personality through their movements and expressions, making them feel a lot more unique and animated. And when the anime would switch it up and give us action, they didn't shy away from giving us some pretty good sakuga. Season 2 doesn't have that. You watch in real time as whatever unique style the first season had dies. Parading in its carcass is dull, minimal movement that lacks any real flair to it. And even then, the season can't seem to do that consistently, as sometimes characters will appear looking off-model with disproportionate features. And don't get me started on the action. This all makes for quite the unremarkable return. But art and animation are parts that could easily be overlooked if the content itself was still able to be entertaining, right? I mean, we are getting more of these characters, world and scenario that we came to love in the first season, right? Unfortunately, the second season takes 1 step forward and 3 steps back. There are a lot of things wrong with the direction the story goes this time around, and it hurts the overall experience of the series. First and foremost, this season becomes less of a slice of life, slowly raising the stakes while heavily expanding on the lore and world building of Entei Isla. We get a lot more characters from the other world, most of which are antagonists, who can just freely show up whenever to go after Mao and the others. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't mind when an anime makes changes to its tones. The same thing happened in Medaka Box that went from a slice of life into a shonen and got even better when it did, but in the case of The Devil is a Part-Timer, its transition wasn't all that graceful. The focus becomes a lot more on these rather unremarkable characters coming in from another world to cause trouble that it takes away from the core reason people enjoyed the series in the first place. This change also retroactively hurt the first season because at that time, we were made to believe that all the people who came to the real world were stuck there with no access to magic, which meant it was near impossible for them to return to Entei Isla. Hell, discovering how to go back was one of Mao's goals, but come season 2, we have characters casually opening gates to go to and fro between worlds, rendering that story beats pretty pointless and just making their struggle in the first season feel a bit redundant. It also doesn't help that anime now tries to focus on the politics of Entei Isla, which was the last thing I expected to get from this series, and frankly, it doesn't do a good job presenting it. So with all these new things taking up valuable screen time, what becomes of our main characters? Well, they kind of just get stripped down to tropes and gags as the plot takes them all over the place. You see, early on in the season, Miles McReynolds ends up having to undergo renovations, forcing him to find temporary work at other places. This is the anime trying to put our characters into new locations and scenarios in an attempt to shake things up, and I have to acknowledge that it does work to a certain degree. However, these new places we end up in only last for like an episode or two, with the jobs themselves being somewhat unmemorable because of how very little focus they get. It also doesn't help that the plot surrounding these episodes feel rushed as hell. Like in one of the jobs, he and his friends take up work at a beach house, but soon find out monsters from the demon army have been trying to invade through that beach, with Mao and Co even meeting one of his old friends. This whole plotline doesn't last as Mao shows up and tells them to leave, and they just do. We also get the reveal that there's this crazy strong human who's been holding the demons back, but nothing really comes from that plotline after. As quickly as things get established, they leave, never really giving you time to soak in the arc you just watched. I never thought I'd see the day a slice of life would have pacing this bad. And this now leaves the characters feeling rather hollow as they've become caricatures of themselves. Mao has Loki becoming Gary Stu, Emi is even more of a bigger tsundere, Chiho is borderline crazy for Mao, Urushihara is unemployed, Ashia continues to meet right and remain the funniest there is, and Suzuno exists, I guess. And while they don't feel as unique as they used to, you can find some enjoyment from them, but even that gets ruined when we get introduced to the worst addition to their crew. Alice Ramos. This thing doesn't even count as a character, but rather acts as a plot device. From the moment she appears, calling Mao her father and Emi her mother, you already know what her purpose is going to be. She is the vehicle meant to push Mao and Emi's relationship to the next level by forcing them to play house for her sake, which leads to them reluctantly getting to know each other better. And while their relationship growing can be seen as a good thing, it doesn't really happen on their terms and makes it feel forced and inorganic. Making it even worse are all the jokes that stem from their new situation. These characters actually have a kid together out of nowhere jokes can only go so far before they get boring really fast. Her inclusion had a lot of potential to really shake up the story, like how are the demon boys who are already living paycheck to paycheck going to manage taking care of a child? But then they get bailed out almost immediately by having Chiho donate baby supplies to them, taking out whatever comedic scenarios that could have come from that. Her very existence hijacks the entire plot of the second season, as early on she is revealed as being part of some super big important MacGuffin that all the supernatural factions are vying for, making her the sole reason why any of the characters are doing anything. It's boring, uninspiring, and takes a lot of agency out of our main characters. She actively makes the story worse and would have been better off having a one-time appearance. Unfortunately, she is here to stay. What the second season of The Devil is a Part-Timer really does is make you realize that realistically, the premise of the Demon Lord working part-time at a McDonald's could only go so far before turning into this. And I think that sucks because it spoils a lot of what made the first season enjoyable. And that's why I think this is the worst anime comeback of the decade. And that'll be it for this video. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing to keep up with future content. And if you'd like to support me further, I've got a Patreon where you can gain access to exclusive content and get shoutouts at the end of future videos. As always, this has been your very favorite slice of bread. Stay toasty.